Hello friends, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today on this really exciting episode. I have been eagerly waiting to do a video of this nature, and what I mean by that is because as I started to get back into this recollecting, my love of comic books is still ongoing. But I don't really want to get heavy into the single issue collecting so much these days. I do once in a while, like small runs, miniseries and stuff. But with the price of comics these days, and they're getting really expensive for single issue and new releases. And also I find the content is not there like it used to be. I find a third of the comic book now is just ads or advertisements for other comics and stuff like that. But the actual meat and potatoes, as they say, of the comic is not really there. So I just don't justify the cost versus the reward in these scenarios. And also I just really don't have the space to start because then you put them in comic boxes and then they start stacking up and stuff, and they're not really as accessible. So if I want to pull out a comic, it becomes a bit of a chore. So with all that kind of being said, what I wanted to do is, and as a collector, I'd rather get into Omnibus. The Omnibus books are absolutely where it's at for me. So my first Omnibus book is this beautiful gem right here, Spider-Man, the Collection by Todd McFarlane. Now this book is, it's legendary. There's just no other way to put it. It's legendary. When Todd McFarlane came onto the scene and he started to draw for the Amazing Spider-Man, his run throughout the 2 years or so that he was drawing for Spider-Man with his Venom arc. He's a co-creator of Venom. Spider-Man 300, Amazing Spider-Man 300 is still one of the most sought after Spider-Man comics, for sure. And it's very expensive these days. But this book here is a little bit different in that sense, where the success of Amazing Spider-Man was phenomenal for Marvel. They decided to start a brand new Spider-Man book series simply titled Spider-Man. And the difference with this is, yes, Todd McFarlane's drawing for it, but in this book, Todd McFarlane is also the writer, whereas in The Amazing Spider-Man, he had very little, if any, input on the story. He was just strictly the artist. So this is more Todd McFarlane than anything else, besides Spawn, of course. So without further ado, we're going to do a deep dive into looking at the artwork in here. And with these books too, I love the collection because they add all the things that kind of were related to the book and the art of its time. So you get advertisements. There was, back in the 90s, there was a comic book guy called The Wizard. And so if you collected cards and comics and stuff like that, it would always kind of have a price listing of what things were valued month to month. But half the book was all stories and interviews and exclusives and stuff like that, and a lot of original art. So McFarlane has a lot of history with Wizard, the book. So a lot of the artwork that he did in those sort of advertisements and stuff like that are all in here. You get a layout of a lot of his original drawings, kind of like the Legend Artist series where they scan all the original pages and they reproduce them. So if you could never afford like a real original page art, this is by far the next best thing because they're all there in top glory. So yeah, let's get into it, man. Let's take a look at Spider-Man, Todd McFarlane. This is so nostalgic for me. This is my Spider-Man. I honestly, besides Eric Larson's another artist that I think draws Spider-Man incredibly. between him and Todd McFarlane, but I will always go with Todd over anybody else. And it was also when I was a kid, this is where I first started collecting Spider-Man comics, was when Todd McFarlane was drawing Amazing Spider-Man, and I didn't know much about artists and stuff like that, but I remember how much this artwork impacted me. It's not, at the time I didn't realize it to what degree it would be, but looking back, there was nothing like this particular era of comics. All these legendary artists, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, as we know, they all went on to form Image Comics, but a lot of them started and got a lot of their name and stuff like that through Marvel Comics, DC to a lesser degree. Jim Lee drew for DC. He's drawing for DC now. He's worked with DC, left Image Comics, but anyway, I'm just going on and rambling on, so let's just get to it, my man. Let's take a look at Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane, Omnibus. All right, so let's dig in. Here's some of the liner notes. All right, yeah. So here you can see Spider-Man 13, where he's wearing the black suit, which is a variant of issue number 1. Then here we get into all the writers and people that contributed to it. And table of contents. There's a lot of mini stories in this run. It's not one consistent story arc. So first up is a 5-issue miniseries called Torment. This is cover 1. They did variants of this. And it was one of the first times that I remember that they ever did variants for comic covers. It's quite exciting. And X-Men by Jim Lee also had a lot of variant covers, and they actually formed together. So you can see the beautiful artwork, beautiful layout. And I love all the detail in the webbing, and his panels are just fantastic. I mean, his attention to detail was everywhere. He just immersed himself completely into this character. And this was a very dark time for Spider-Man too. Spider-Man's always known for being more of a happy, optimistic, kind of fun-loving kid, you know, a young man. And Batman is more of the dark and more violent. But Todd's take on Spider-Man here is quite dark. And when you were a young lad or gal or young person, this was just incredible. You just didn't see this kind of stuff in comics. And the Lizard just looks, he does monsters fantastic. Doom, doom, doom. See, I mean, there, like, look at the violence, you know, you can see just the fact that even Marvel allowed this to kind of happen, you know, with the blood and stuff like that. But let's just say it did not hurt sales by any means. Look at the Lizard there. I'm going to love rereading these. It's been a while since I reread read these stories. So, but one thing about Todd too was his webbing. How much detail. I remember reading interviews with him, and he would say sometimes these big, larger panels, like this one here, he would spend a tremendous amount of time just on the webbing alone. And that was new for Marvel. And the fact that he gave Spider-Man much larger eyes than he was typically known for at the time. And he didn't reinvent the costume by any means, but he definitely added some originality to it. And Torment Part 2. So here he is with Mary Jane, his wife, and he added, you know, a lot of more dimension to the characters I found, where you kind of see Peter Parker more as a person and kind of their actually everyday normal life, and how they try to be a normal couple mixed in with him having his super identity, you know, and kind of a secret she obviously knows about him being Spider-Man. So they really kind of struggle together when he goes out, because he's always essentially risking his life. And in this series, this comic right here, I mean, Spider-Man really gets himself in a mess. And see here with the lizard, his claws got poison on them, I believe, and when he gets cut here by the lizard, throughout the rest of the series, he starts to get weaker and weaker, and he's not quite sure what's going on, and the poison's running through his body. And so Spider-Man is really struggling with this fight. Meanwhile, Mary Jane, she's out just being, you know, a gal out trying to have a good time, not worrying about Spider-Man, Peter Parker so much. But look at these panels. I mean, you can really, it's no surprise that when he ended up drawing for Spawn and how dark Spawn was, and how dark Spawn is, you can see that these overtones and style were already kind of starting to show themselves here, you know. And then we go back into flashbacks. I love how he uses web to kind of showcase a bit more of a dreamy sequence. So we'll get going a little bit more, but look at these. I mean, I find Todd McFarlane, this is where he really excels with like monsters and costumes and stuff. I find like some of his human, like when you see the humans and stuff, I find sometimes like his eyes and stuff, or I find I don't want to talk badly or anything, but I find like they look too friendly, you know, like, and I get it for, you know, characters like Mary Jane and stuff like that, but when you see Peter Parker, he doesn't look like I don't know. It's just something about the way he draws faces. They don't seem intimidating in some cases where they probably should, you know. Not that Peter Parker needs to look intimidating, but, you know, some of the other characters. Craven there, man, look at that. With half his head gone. I mean, the lizard beside him. That's just amazing. Look at this cover art. But, I mean, this stuff is, I just don't see Spider-Man any other way except for Todd McFarlane. Yeah, and she's the main villain of the story here. I guess I don't really know who she is very well, but I know she's got relationship to Craven, and I think with Craven passing or dying, yeah. But even just the way he like draws these comic panels, it's just also very unique. He just really, you know, he really explored changing the boundaries of what comics were and what they, you know, in terms of his storytelling and stuff like that. It's just, but we'll get going a little bit faster here because this book is quite large, and you know. But look at that. I mean, Spider-Man, the fact, this was something that was really unique as well, is the, you know, when you saw Spider-Man here just really struggling with this battle, but seeing that the costume has been really damaged and mangled, and the fact that you can see some of his face underneath it and stuff. I mean, that is, you don't see Spider-Man in such shambled shape, you know, overall. And it's just amazing. Look at that. That's just incredible. You know, all the rain coming down, and you know, just, you just can't beat this stuff. Look at that. I mean, I just love it. can see here mentally he's really at his limit as well. Like he's probably, with the poison coursing through him and being defeated, and he's probably, his focus is clearly diminished and his strength is diminished, and all the psychological stuff that's going on. It's just, he's really just never been pushed like this before, you know. And the lizard hanging up there on chains, the blood coming down, and that's something. Yeah, here he is. He got through the battle, but just barely, you know, just barely. And he's trying to get himself home, but then the lizard rises yet again. And then this story is introducing the hobgoblin into the... I mean, look at the way he draws his monsters. It's just incredible. Yeah, you can definitely see Spawn, or what would become Spawn. I mean, that right there, you know, the hobgoblin there, with the way he draws the cape and stuff, it makes me think of Spawn. And Ghost Rider makes his appearance. I think he draws Ghost Rider just incredible. Just incredible. Yeah. That's fun that they, you know, very playful. You know, the fact that he's in his costume in their apartment, he's hanging upside down in the washroom, and, you know, she's getting ready for her day, or he's creeping in from being Spider-Man, I guess is what it was. But look at these panels. Just even the poses. I mean, they never get boring. Like every time he's like swinging through the air, through the buildings and cityscape and stuff. Todd always draws them in very amazing and unique poses, you know. It just kind of gives you a sense of how athletic Spider-Man really is, you know. Drugs. Yeah. This is a fantastic book. I mean, I just can't recommend it enough. And this is Ghost Rider and Hobgoblin, Part 2. Yeah, Ghost Rider. It's just incredible. Yeah, let's kind of move through. I just love it. Just love it. Some of the pages are still stuck together. You can hear it. I mean, like, look at that. I mean, that's just amazing. You know, you just don't see Spider-Man in these environments nearly as much, you know, out in the wilderness. He's always in the city, but here he's out in the woods, out in the forest, hunting a child murderer. Again, all these stories are very dark, very dark. Love that he introduces Canada here. But also that leads into Logan and Wolverine, because Logan is Canadian, which is awesome. The Daily Bugle, you know, Hunter killed as search continues. Just everything. I mean, these page layouts are just phenomenal. See, this is where I really think he draws humans fantastic, like these exaggerated features and stuff, you know, just incredible. But I find some of the eyes, you know, like here, you know, the eyes are just really large. The proportions look a little bit off to me. I'm not trying to be critical or anything, but I'm not going to start criticizing Todd McFarlane's art, but look at Wolverine. That's just amazing. Just amazing. Spider-Man and Wolverine together. I love that with these little mini stories is that, I mean, look at that page layout. That's incredible. But I love how he tried to introduce a lot of other the Marvel characters. You know, obviously he's got Ghost Rider we just saw, and Wolverine. He tries to get a lot of Spider-Man's lesser known villains. You know, it's not always Venom. I love that Kraven made an appearance, even though it wasn't actually Kraven, but he made an attempt to get Kraven in there. And, you know, like characters like the Vulture and Mysterio, some of his earlier villains and nemesis. Just awesome. I mean, look again, look, you know, just the angles, just the fact that he chose a side view. You can see all of, you know, Spider-Man's muscles. You can see in what incredible shape he's in. Athletic plus fit, you know. And then again, the fact that he would change up the layout, so he, you know, a double page there, sideways, forming a bigger picture is, you know, again, pretty unique for the time. And Wolverine, just wow! Look at that! Like the poses, even like his sense of shading and shadow, you know, just amazing. A very creative artist. I wish he drew more. He doesn't draw nearly as much as he used to. The odd cover here and there. Yeah, this is just awesome. Logan having a smoke, you know. Attention to detail. It just, you know, he really understands these characters a great deal, you know. Again, there's no real distinction between Logan and Wolverine, just the fact that he's wearing a costume, but, you know, he doesn't change his personality or anything. He is what he is. He is who he is, you know. I love Wolverine for that. You know, look at that. Of course, they're having conflict of, you know, how to go about it, perhaps. You know, Wolverine is also hunting these child killers as well, but he's got a completely different approach than Spider-Man. So them teaming up and getting on the same page together, so to speak, is another part of the story arc. You know, Wolverine is not so sensitive to some of these villains. He will kill them. He will. Spider-Man will try to be more of a go by the rules. You know, bring them to justice sort of thing. Wolverine's like, let's just make these killers disappear. Right? Like, I mean, just the attitude, just the, you know, again, something that you just don't see so much in these earlier comics with all the blood and stuff like that. It really grounds these stories, makes them so much more real and believable. And yeah, see, Wolverine does have a very sensitive side too, because now that Wendigo has been, he realizes that Wendigo is not the killer. And then when he was shot and Wolverine was able to pull out the bullet, you know, they're bonding, you know, the fact that it shows the gentle side of Wolverine. But, you know, yeah, and just the story, you look at the shadows here, you know, just the shadows here. But I love how it shows, you know, Wolverine and Wendigo, you know, holding hands there. I mean, it's, again, you don't really see that side of Wolverine as much. But I like that Todd explored that. It's not just, you know, Wolverine going into savage mode all the time. There is a sensitive side there. And so it really, I find he really has, with his storytelling and his drawings, he really gives a depth to these characters in ways that we've never really known. You know, you see them more as, you know, they have their struggles too, right? What is the line that they cross? When does the hero become the villain, possibly, you know? by going too far, you know. And Wolverine's always kind of on the fence with those sort of issues, you know. I mean, the red eyes, you know, so he's going through some rage. You know, I love how, look at that, where he's just putting the mask on, right? And it shows all the detail of, you know, it's just amazing, right? Wolverine getting a little fed up with the good boy Peter Parker, Spider-Man attitude. You know, he's getting a little frustrated. Yeah, there we go, back into Logan there. You know, having a smoke, having a puff. Yeah, see, Wolverine, this is what he's saying, you know, he finds them, the killers, the police are there, and Wolverine's like, no, let me handle this, bub. I'm gonna put these claws right through this piece of shit's eyes, right through his head, you know. Spider-Man's more likely the one that's gonna cooperate with the police, and Wolverine, not so much. Right, boom. Wow. Spider-Man 13, so Todd revisits the black costume. So, I know, I can go through all this. I don't necessarily... But see, every page deserves its own attention. I mean, like, again, like, look at that. I mean, just the fact that he's got this thing for Felix the cat, because he kind of makes a little bit of appearances, you know, Peter Parker's underwear, boxer shorts a little while back. You know, and it just shows Spider-Man really having fun with his abilities. You know, hanging upside down. He's got the box of donuts there in his web, and the donuts are sticking to his fingers, and you know, I mean, it's incredible. Like, he just really, he likes to play and have fun. And even look at the dress and wardrobe of Mary Jane there. Very, very interesting. Makes her look very beautiful, you know. She looks fantastic, and Spider-Man looks fantastic. I mean, look at that black costume and all the details, his muscles, and it's one of these things where I actually don't know what I prefer, the Spider-Man in the black costume or Spider-Man as an original costume, and they're both just, I don't want to pick, but very, very rarely when you have these variants in characters, you kind of always gravitate towards one or the other. But in this, I'm so torn. Like, I just think that Spider-Man looks amazing in both costumes, and yet it still looks like him no matter what. Even though, like, this is black, and the white spider is much larger than the spider on the red costume. You know, look at that. Just all the detail. All the webbing and... oh. I can only imagine how impressed he was for writing the story and drawing at the same time, and then making a monthly book come out, you know, and being on time. Yes. Yeah, Morpheus, the vampire, makes his appearance. That's a villain you don't see very often either, you know. And then this is kind of where we get into there was a crossover with X-Force, Rob Liefeld's X-Force. And then here you get into, so this was cool because they both, Rob Liefeld's issue and Todd's issue, they went, again, just kind of defining new boundaries with, like, the comic was drawn sideways, so when you read it, it was, you know, up and down like this. But, you know, the fact his Juggernaut, really cool. Cable. I definitely find, like, Rob Liefeld draws Cable better. Of course, I know Cable is also his creation too, Rob Liefeld. But no matter what, the thing that's fantastic about these artists is that no matter who they're drawing, whether it's their own characters or well-known characters, there's such a style that they have that you can't, like when, you know, Rob Liefeld draws Deadpool, you know it's Rob Liefeld. You know, if Jim Lee was to draw Deadpool, very different. Same as Tom McFarlane. I've never seen Todd draw Deadpool, but just saying, you know, if he was ever to draw Deadpool. But see, look at that cable. Like, see, that cable looks a little bit more intimidating, whereas Todd's cable didn't look nearly as intimidating as Rob Liefeld's, just as an example. A lot to do with the eyes, I think. But I love Rob Liefeld's style too. These guys were all phenomenal. Like, just what an incredible set of young artists that all came together and wrote and did some incredible work. So here we're getting into the end of the book now, and these were the covers. This one here had it was a sealed bag issue, and there was a card, I believe, inside if you bought it. And then there was the silver, and then the gold. And this is the unbagged, same comic, issue 1, and then there's the gold. Now this is what I love about the Omnibus, is all these extra details, right? Marvel Age, you know, Todd had drawn that cover, you know, and some of these, you know, little comic panels and stuff like that, all added together. I mean, it's just, these are things, if you were trying to collect them as single issues, you might not have known they existed, or you might not be able to get them beyond just the original run. And then, like, see, I don't even know what this is. This is a fun little, you know, commentary, joke sort of Spider-Man. And I remember, yes, see, talking about the violence, I remember this before, is the Todd McFarlane was really talking about pushing boundaries, but having the sword, because Juggernaut is pretty much immune with his armor and stuff, but one of his vulnerabilities was the eye or the mouth or whatever. But so the fact that the sword would pierce through and get him in the eye, which is one of his only weaknesses, I mean, that was very controversial. So, or again, he talks about the you know, Craven with half his head gone. But see, I never seen this before. I never seen this before at all. So I never seen any of this before. So this is why. See, now this is where I was talking about the wizard. And look, here we are. McFarlane had drawn for issue 1, right? That's very cool. And then some notes. Spider-Man Torment. Now this is where we get into, see, this is cool too, because they take the original covers and then they recolored them, and with the cell shading and stuff like that, and it gives you a more appreciation for the artwork, you know, like that's kind of the cover there of the original book. I take the sleeve off, and you can see here it really does change the dimension of these drawings a great deal. Like this, with the fact that everything's glowing, and but yet the background is still really dark, and all the spiders crawling all over them. You know, it's such a nice treat to have all this extra art and content. Now these here are the comic pages, the original pages that Todd drew, scanned. And just the fact that this was included, so you can see what page number it is and stuff like that. The fact that you have his signature right there, you know, written in gold. You know, he's just the way he writes his name. Spider-Man #3 page, you know. But yes, I love his penmanship as well. So this is just a beautiful collection. I just am so happy with it. I'm so excited that for my first omnibus, I had to get something that was very dear to my heart. And Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane is definitely that. So, I hope you enjoyed, my friends, and thanks for watching.